Hi there, welcome to the Lighthouse Sessions. Today I'm excited to bring my new friend Kat Jovey into the world. Kat, why don't you introduce yourself? Just tell me a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure. So I've been working on building a brand to help high achieving perfectionists who are looking to tap into their authenticity, especially around how they communicate, things like setting boundaries. And I've started creating practical tools, videos, courses all around that to help people with things that I used to really struggle with and things I wish I knew sooner anyways.
I love that. Now, one of the things I like to explore is why people do what they do. And a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't prepare for that. Well, yes, you've spent your whole life doing it. So what was the moment where you went, number one, I'm good at this. And number two, I could run a business doing this?
Sure. So during COVID, I lost my, 9 to 5 job and suddenly realized that I had only identified as my job. And I was like, oh no, this is a problem. And for years had worried about what's my path? What should be my thing? So many people have a thing and I want my thing. And it used to stress me out. And during that time, then I had a lot of time to think about what I found fulfilling and what I loved and how I could contribute to others. And I realized that what brought me the most fulfillment was helping others excel, helping to sort of level them up faster in a process, whatever it might be, through my past jobs. And then since lockdown, I've slowly been sort of niching more and more and more towards this whole area of authentic communication, because that has allowed me to have really beautiful connections with other people, relationships. It's allowed me to be less burnt out because I'm not spread so thin because I say yes to everything. And it's just been such a wonderful change to go through myself. And I would love other people to experience that too.
I love that. And I think what I find fascinating about entrepreneurs is they go through their own pain and then they at some point go, okay, I'm going to solve my own pain. And then they're like, oh, I could sell this solution to other people.
Totally. And that's the thing, like you go through initially when I wanted to make my own thing, I started thinking, well, like, what am I good at? What could I teach? What could I make money at? And I feel like I went at it in the wrong direction because it's very hard to maintain something if it's not something you're passionate about or that you have knowledge in. And so then realizing slowly over time, after making many mistakes, as all entrepreneurs, I believe do, but mistakes that are wonderful learnings, I realized that this was an area that I could talk about forever and that I'm still constantly working on as well. And I love that.
I love that. Now, I'm looking at your LinkedIn, and I think this is fascinating. So your titles, you talk about being a motivational speaker, a workshop facilitator. So we're going to unpack those two things, and then we're going to talk about you use one of my favorite word pairs, which is authentic relationships. I talk a lot about building authentic relationships in business, and a lot of people question that as a strategy. And I can't think of why you'd want to be in business without relationships, authentic especially. And we're going to probably talk about effective communication. Is there anything else we should cover while we're at it?
I mean, I love those topics. Those are juicy ones. I feel like we have everything we need right there.
Love it. And we may actually talk about the flowers in bloom in Toronto as well, right?
Why not?
Because why not? Fair enough. Well, let's jump in. So tell me about becoming a motivational speaker and workshop facilitator.
Sure. So when I was many moons ago, I used to want to be an actress, and then at a point realized that that probably wasn't going to be a possibility or sustainable or yada, yada, yada. And I started getting very into making videos. I used to do a lot of YouTube when I was younger. And then I realized that public speaking can very much be similar to that. So there was a lot of crossover there. And then when I started getting into doing a lot of training at work, helping onboard new people and coming up with ways to help them, be the best at their job they possibly could, I realized there was an opportunity for that overlap where my work would pay me to run workshops and whatnot for people, maybe initially on topics that I wasn't necessarily super excited about. But that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. You can run workshops and do motivational talks on whatever you want.
I love it. Now, I have a bias, and you're about to discover it. I believe every entrepreneur who has a business should have a motivational speech of some sort. I call it a signature talk, but you should have something that you can, if somebody asks you last minute, you've got a talk ready, because the worst thing is when somebody asks you and say, oh, no, I'm not ready. The other thing I believe is that every business, especially in the services area where we're selling air, not a tangible product, I believe we should have a workshop. And I would go so far as to say, even if you just sell products, you should have a workshop. Thoughts on that?
I completely agree. I mean, you want to have something that you can go to easily, something you could do a 10-minute TED talk on right here and now, because you never know, a moment might present itself where you could help someone with something, or you want to be able to have something that's an easy lift for you. If you are, selling workshops to companies, let's say, and you may need to have a quick turnaround, you want to have something that's very easy for you to step into. And if it's something that you're really passionate about and have done it on many times, it's very easy to have that just sort of ready to go. One that's been big for me over the last 4 months, I'd say, would be difficult conversations. So it's able to cover a variety of topics I love to talk about, but it has a lot of very practical tips. So it's something that I've really enjoyed running.
I love that. And honestly, okay, this is another. In my car, driving my kids to and from school, they get to hear dad rants every day. And it's not a rant so much as a conversation. And one of the things that actually came up this morning was the inordinate amount of time my kids are spending learning the same things every year over and over that, quite frankly, don't matter. And my question this morning is, why aren't you learning communication skills? Why aren't you learning how to have difficult, I didn't use the word difficult, I used challenging, but
Sure.
The reality is, wouldn't that be a better life skill than memorizing the ecosystem model in science? Like,
There's a lot of things in school that probably should be taught instead, though. No, how to do
yeah,
your taxes, how
how to use a computer.
It's true. And in this day of attention spans going down and social media and screens raising kids in some cases, people aren't learning those skills as much. Like when I was little, and again, it was before cell phones were around all the time. At dinner, it was expected that you would interact with your parents, your siblings, whoever was there, the friends of the family that were visiting. And whether you enjoyed it or not, you were forced to work on that skill. And so the fact that that happens less, it seems, and in some households, and then in schools, like it just would be beautiful to have that in school, because it's one of those human things that all of us are going to deal with. We're all going to have challenging conversations throughout our entire life, every single year, probably every single month in some variety, right?
Yep.
And trying to understand yourself and maybe what triggers you, understand others, learn how to read body language, learn how to have it be us against the problem instead of me against you. I mean, there's so many applications day to day. And you look at the world and you also think, gosh, some of these people in power learn to have better conversations. Things could be different.
Well, and honestly, that's one of my challenges with a lot of social media right now is the algorithms make more money for the company when it's me versus you.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that if world peace broke out tomorrow, all the advertising agencies, the news agencies, they all go out of business because nobody's checking in to see how's that peace talk going. They're like, oh, we're at peace. Okay, life's good. And it fascinates me, even in a small microcosm like a school, wouldn't it be nice if all the kids had the tools to say, I don't like that, instead of you're stupid?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, seems to be one of the things I see a lot on social media is if you don't agree with me, you're clearly stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that ability to understand that it's okay for other people to have other perspectives, and what you find delicious, I might not find so delicious, but that's cool. You enjoy your whatever balsamic and blueberries and all, or whatever it is, like it just approaching life like that, approaching other humans like that, and just thinking, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
Instead of you're stupid or you're weird or whatever it is, like, oh, huh, cool,
Yeah.
interesting. Not for me, but cool.
I've actually seen, my wife follows food bloggers, and it's amazing how vicious they can get over, just as an example, does pineapple belong on a pizza? And it's like, that is not an issue worth fighting over. I happen to believe it does. I don't expect that anybody else needs to believe it, because my belief doesn't take away from yours, and vice versa.
Yeah. I mean, that extends to so many conversations in the world, especially happening right now. You put whatever you want on your pizza, I'll put whatever I want. It's not going to the rest of your life, but it's fascinating how polarizing those things can be. And to me, how people feel they need to say that negative thing.
Yeah.
I honestly, I mean, from I guess a government point of view, maybe I wouldn't love this, but part of me would love for people to have their full name and a photo of them on all social media, because I think people would react or interact differently.
Yeah. Well, and again, maybe not the public display, but I do believe, and this is just my weird little vision of the future, if we had some sort of blockchain technology behind it, and we got voted up or down based on our comments, people would get nicer quickly, because if the algorithm is giving you a thumbs down because you're mean all the time, but again, there's no money in stopping the meanness. There's all kinds of money in the hatred. So
yeah, so I mean, there have been a bunch of studies where negative conversations or getting people in that are what gets people looking at it, what gets people going into the comments and saying more and interacting more and engaging. And it's so sad. And you can train your algorithm, much like you have. We talked about this earlier. Like, you can train it. If you don't stay on that horrible video that has hate in it and you scroll away quickly, your algorithm will start to be like, oh, you don't want to see this. You don't support this.
Yeah. Well, and for what it's worth, I've been really learning all the little secrets and buttons on LinkedIn, and you can unsubscribe, you can, remove yourself, and you can also give things a thumbs down. You can say, I don't want to see this anymore. And, it was fascinating when I broke up with the LinkedIn algorithm. It's literally, my screen would load blank. And it little wheel would spin. It didn't know what to serve me. And then it'd be like, oh, how about this? And I'd say, nope, hate it. And it would, oh, what about this? Hate it. And it was fascinating, because every couple of days it would try to feed me something else.
Right.
And it was like, oh, he's Canadian, we're going to send him stuff about tariffs. And I'm like, nope, don't want it. And it was just fascinating. I can hear the poor little algorithm, screaming itself to sleep at night, going, why won't he listen to me?
Jeff just doesn't want to listen to my suggestions.
It's like, he's broken. He wants to have, and this is where building authentic relationships comes in. I'd love your definition of it, because to me, I can lament about the algorithms. I can complain. A lot of people say, oh, LinkedIn's become a dumpster fire. And it's like, where do you hang out? What do you like or follow or comment on? Because mine, it's a nice little clean place where strange but fun visionary people hang out and share what's going on in their world.
Yeah. Well, I love that you've taken the time to be intentional and curate that, to go in and thumbs down and thumbs up those. I think a lot of people just show up and start scrolling through instead of taking that intentionality behind it. Yeah. And I mean, to answer your question about authentic relationships, to me, that's, I show up as authentic as I can, and in doing that, create a safe space then for you to feel like, well, you can just show up authentically too, because I'm not going to yuck your yum, whatever you're into. I'm just curious to know about your perspective, to know about your experiences, because I can never have those things. So I want to talk to you and find out about those. And when you come from that place of authenticity, it's just easier to get into real, deep interesting conversations. And for me, like, I'm getting goosebumps just saying this because I'm like, it's so fun. Like, the places that you go when you're able to do that are so beautiful.
Yeah.
And people are getting to know the real you. You're not having to wear a mask and be like, okay, well, I'm going to hang out with Jeff. I need to get my very professional sales LinkedIn voice on. Like,
here's my suit.
and then, you know, like, you're not everyone's flavor. And that's amazing. There are some people that won't like that I'm very loud and outspoken or whatever it is. Amazing. We won't hang out then. I'll hang out with Jeff and the other people that enjoy this vibe, and my life will be better. I will be more authentic and more magnetic because of it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I'm going to share something with you. I once taught a sales seminar for a room. It was supposed to be a room full of accountants. And so I was teaching them how to be authentic and sincere. And there was a scheduling oops, and I ended up with a room full of insurance people in the room. And they all loved my presentation. They're all taking notes. Right at the end, one raised his hand and he said, "Excuse me, Jeff, love the stuff you're doing. This is brilliant. It's amazing. One minor little detail, you didn't tell us how to fake sincerity and authenticity." And I went, oh, and I was speechless. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And they said, okay, show of hands, who's here to learn how to fake sincerity? Everybody put up their hand. And I was like, oh my God, none of you belong in my world. Please don't call me. Don't follow me. We don't need to connect. And I said, this was supposed to be a room full of accountants who genuinely care about their clients. They show up. They want to work with them. And the organizer was like, sorry.
Oh, no.
But here I'm being 100%, you know, I'm being sincere and authentic. And then everybody in the room, all they wanted to know was, how do you fake that? And I went, oh, crap.
And, oh my God. And well, like, and it's just not a thing. Like, people sense it, like, whether they know specifically and they can't point to the specific thing, they can sense that there's something off. Like, the energy is weird. And I mean, there are books like How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I've seen people take it very literally. I had an old boss, and she would talk with people, and she read in the book that you're supposed to turn your head to the side when you're listening. It makes it look like you're listening. And she would like really tilt it to a really awkward position. Like, you could tell she was just like checking off things to be like she was listening and all that.
I love that. And by the way, you're going to be quoted as, I'm not here to yuck your yum. I do know a lot of people who take offense to How to Win Friends and Influence People. I look at it as more of a guideline and some suggestions. It's kind of like, you know, you do you make your own little recipe. You know, if you're making goulash, you don't follow someone's recipe. You just throw in what you got. And if you come at How to Win Friends and Influence People that way, it's really about how do you make people feel comfortable so that you can build that relationship. It's not, how do I manipulate you so that you like me?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And again, like, realizing some people are not going to be there. You're not going to vibe together, and that's okay. As a recovering people pleaser, that was very hard for me for many moons. I found it very difficult, and I would try harder, and it was exhausting. And my friendships are so much better now because I'm just like, that's cool. You're not, that's fine.
You mentioned something, and I want to come back to the people pleaser, because one of the things I do find a lot of visionary entrepreneurs, we are world class at masking ourselves so that people around us don't feel less than because we're in the room. So how did you, first of all, come to the awareness that you are a people pleaser? And then how did you start setting those boundaries so that you could take that mask off and actually come out and be the Kat that the world needed?
Sure.
Not the one that you thought they wanted, but the one the world needed.
Yeah. I mean, similar time. So during COVID, again, during lockdown, I used to have many social plans every single day. On the weekends, I'd have 6 different social plans. I just said yes to everything. And yeah. And same with work. Like, oh, we need help with this. Great. And so I was working at like 200% at work. I was going all cylinders firing socially, going to events that I didn't like at all, and just slowly building this resentment. But I didn't realize, because I was just going so quickly, that I never took the time. And I would get sick and burn out and then not be able to hang out for a week. It was horrible.
Yep.
And then lockdown happened and all of those things fell away. And I had the best get out of jail free card. I'm like, well, I can't. I'm not
Yep.
allowed as per
The
the government.
government says, thank you, government.
I'm going to do me. And at first, of course, like very difficult at being a social person, but it just made me realize that having understanding and reading yourself of when you have hit a limit is important, but also being authentic about what you are and aren't interested in going to, like events with friends, allows them to know you better anyways. Like they're realizing, oh, actually, you're not into that kind of art. I won't invite her to that kind of stuff. I'll try something else. You're not, I was always worried that if I said no, they'd hate me. But
Yeah.
in fact, the opposite's true. We're closer now because they actually know what I'm into now.
And they know when you say yes that you're there and you're going to have fun.
Yeah, and I'm going to show up fully. I'm not dragging my feet there thinking, oh God, watching the clock.
It's like, oh, and by the way, that's one thing I find with a lot of visionaries. They say yes to everything, regret a lot of it, and then it's like, okay, how do I get out of it? And I think for me, that was COVID as well. Oh, I can say no. I can set boundaries.
Yeah.
And oh, I don't feel weird or icky or, and now I can just say to people, by the way, my greatest gift somebody gave me was the phrase, no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
And I went, ooh, write that down.
No excuses needed. No amble after that. Just no.
Just no.
Yeah.
And it's funny because a friend of mine, actually, she runs a coaching program and she teaches people how to set boundaries. And she sent me this long email saying, hey, would you mind doing this, this, and this for me? And I just responded with no, just to see how she'd react. And she's like, damn it, you've been paying attention. She was very proud. Yeah. She's like very proud, but she's like, I totally did not see that coming.
I love that. Hey, well, that's the thing. Then you're going to start seeing it reflected back and you need to be prepared for it.
Yep. And the other thing I found, and I want to hear your experience, but once I started setting boundaries, it was the people who pushed back the hardest that didn't want me to have boundaries in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
They were the ones that were always perpetually moving and, hey, Jeff, can you come help me? And once I started saying no, it was like, well, what am I supposed to do? You always help me. Well, maybe stop moving.
Yeah. There's a variety of things that you could do instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at a certain age, hire a truck. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that. I don't know if it was mean, but like a certain age, you can hire movers. You're an adult now.
Beer and pizza is no longer a currency once you're an adult. So
correct. We have back injuries and knee injuries and
aching pain and sciatica and blah blah, blah.
And other priorities. No, but it's true, and it's interesting to watch how your friend group or your network might change when that happens. And again, it can feel really uncomfortable, but in the long run, it's for the better. And if they don't like you for you, if they like you because you're a servant to them or because you always do everything they say and you're a yes person, then maybe they're not looking into your best interests. And like you need to protect your own time. No one's doing it for you. We're adults. So we don't have a parent saying, oh no, you need to sleep, you need to nap. No, that's too many things. We need to do that. And it's hard.
I love that. Now, that I think is key. And I'm going to put some words into your mouth because I feel like this is a path we need to explore. You use the phrase or the pairing authentic relationships. And one of my observations through these podcasts I've been doing and the people I've been talking to is that the best networkers, the best connectors, first and foremost know themselves. And I feel like that's part of your branding is you need to know who you are, because how can you build anything authentically until you know who you are? Is that a fair comment?
100%. You need to take that time to figure out who you are and have that time by yourself. And having been social and a people pleaser, I never took that time. Or I was in like serial monogamous relationships. So I never took the time to be like, well, what is it like if I'm just single by myself for 2 years? Or what is it like if I go live in Lima for a month by myself? Like the things that you learn about yourself when you give yourself that space to think about what is really important to me, what is fulfilling, And you also, hopefully learn to love yourself as well. I was a big critic of myself for years, and now I think I'm a pretty delightful human. And like that is helpful too.
Yeah. Well, and quite frankly, when you're happier with yourself, that shines out to people. And, I have this theory that, if you can't love yourself, how do you give love to other human beings? How do you connect with them? And I think that's a fascinating thing about the podcast. By the way, my wife's going to watch this episode and she's going to comment on all your lovely plants. She judges podcasts by the plants in the background. So
yes,
she keeps telling me, she's got her little green babies upstairs. She wants to bring them down. And I'm like, nope, I will knock them over. I will, I talk with my hands. I'm going to send one flying. So
that's why they're deep in my background, Jeff. I know myself. I'm an Italian hand talker. Even this mic has seen some things.
Every now and then the monitor goes, it's like, whoops. So, but when you surround yourself with the stuff that you enjoy, then it's a conversation piece. And I think if you truly, if you don't like plants, why would you have plants around you?
Yeah.
But again, if somebody else likes plants, they're going to go, oh my God, is that a what you call it? And my wife would know every plant behind you, and I just call it a plant.
Sure. Well, it's an easy way to open the door for psychological safety. If I have fun things in my background, and like I have a plethora of things, like there's a book, there's a this, there's a that. Like at work, I have things on my desk, and it's almost like putting candy out virtually. Yeah. Like you're like, here, please feel free to comment on one of these things. And it just makes it easier. At some places, there's these virtual backgrounds, and I get it. Some people might not be able to curate their background. Maybe they have a tight space where they work from. Yeah. But if at all you're able to have an authentic background, it's created so many easier conversations. When you first drop on a call, you're meeting someone for the first time, it gives you something to work with.
Yeah. And I think people don't recognize, with a lot of camera placement and stuff, and by the way, I break all the rules, you're supposed to sit back about 3 feet from your camera so that people don't feel like you're right here, because with the advent of social media and with video conferencing, everybody stepped into our personal space without realizing it.
Yeah, they don't realize that even if it's just visually on a screen, feels like you're way too close for how we know. For just meeting, oh my God, we at least have coffee first. Well, and also it gives more body language too. Like when I'm here, and you can see my hands doing this, like I'm saying, friend, no weapons in my hands.
Yeah, nothing here. I love that. And, it's funny because with some of my friends, we're spread out around the world. We'll have virtual lunches together because it's part of that, as a species, we want to know you don't break bread with your enemies. You're going to have lunch with your friends. So I've had some brown bag lunch Zoom meetings, and it's quite fun, actually.
I like that idea. I think that'd be really a nice way to stay in contact with those friends that have moved around.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the work that you do. So I really, again, my goal is somebody watches this and says, oh my God, Kat's hilarious. I need to get to talk to her. How does somebody know that they need to talk to you? What's bugging them? What's waking them up at night? What are they agonizing over? And it's like, if you only just talk to Kat, she'd make that all go away.
Right. Okay. So if you love being excellent at what you do, but you get either overwhelmed or burned out because you're trying to do all of the things, if you really are anxious over potentially challenging conversations coming up, or you don't know how to have that conversation where you want to put in a boundary with a friend, if you are someone who's up at 3 a.m. thinking about that and thinking like, oh, what's it going to say? What if they're going to hate me? What if, oh God, like, how do I say this without being mean? How do I say this in a way that won't be offensive? I don't want to lose this friendship. Yeah. This is a conversation we can definitely have. It's something that I've helped a lot of people with, and even figuring out sort of how to, prioritize the things you might want to bring up in that conversation too, to make sure that it's a helpful conversation. there's that old adage, is it helpful? Is it kind? Is it necessary?
Yeah.
And I think that's so true and important to think about with that. But yeah, I'd say, sort of those challenging conversations, pushing past people pleasing and sort of perfectionism are my main areas that I talk with people the most about.
I love it. And, it's fascinating. This is anecdotal. I have not done a deep dive scientific experiment, but it seems like with the pause that COVID gave the world, a lot of people have lost practice with, I'm going to say, expressing their opinion with degrees of severity, starting from gentle to push somebody over. There's a scale in there. It's not binary. It's like, okay, we're going to get along or I'm going to push you over. I feel like you're probably getting more of these conversations today than perhaps, in 2020.
Yeah, there's a lot of polarizing things happening in the world. And being willing to have those conversations with someone that maybe doesn't share the same viewpoint on things with you is still important. And I'm not saying that we're going to both end up agreeing. We could agree to disagree, but we at least hear each other out, have that conversation, understand your perspective, your experience.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, at least we've understood where we're coming from. And a lot of people, I think, are just so scared to have those conversations. And they, like you said, are polarized. Like, they're like, oh, that person believes in that, dead to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. I mean, maybe they're not going to be your best friend, but
yeah. Do we need to go straight to dead to me?
Yeah. Well, because I think that's why there's like, it's the right and the left seem to be very this or that now. It doesn't seem to be that there's more in the center or a little bit gray zone. It seems like it's one or the other. And then no one wants to talk. And that'll only get worse and worse and cause so many other terrible problems.
And that fascinates me. I look at, and again, pre-COVID, it seems that we could agree to disagree. We could agree to agree. We could disagree to disagree. But now it's literally, and I've seen this where people are so closely aligned, they're like sitting next to each other in the spectrum of alignment, but you think the sun rises in the east and I think it rises in the east, but 1 degree south. And all of a sudden we can't be friends anymore. And it's like, good God, people.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. And to me, having friends with different perspectives and backgrounds is great because it keeps me grounded and it keeps me asking questions. It keeps me wondering what I'm missing, hearing the other side of something. And I just think it's important to have an open mind. A lot of people, and especially the older you get, or depending on, how you were brought up, you get very stubborn in your ideas. And for me, being open-minded has created a lot of beautiful connections, conversations, and education also for myself, because I'm learning more all the time.
Well, and I find the secret ingredient in most of the people I get along with is we're curious. It's like, oh, how did you come to that? Like when I've got my mind closed and I've got my arms crossed and I'm like, nope, it's my way or the highway, I stop learning instantly.
Yeah.
Whereas, it's fascinating to me because I talk to a lot of people who are very spiritual, not necessarily religious. And when people ask me what's the difference, I'm like, oh God, I'm going to get in trouble. But the reality is when you're spiritual, my religion, your religion, my beliefs, your beliefs, the world is better because of it. Whereas when you get too religious, it's like, well, if you're not the right, sect of my religion, if you don't go to my church, then it's us versus you. And it's like, no, let's agree that we can all be good people and we can all worship our own belief system.
Yeah. I mean, curiosity can take you to a lot of really beautiful places when you frame it like that. I have a friend who's Catholic and I would say I'm spiritual and I'll say, oh yeah, the universe, da 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 da, and he'll say, oh God, blah, 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 blah. And like, cool.
Yeah.
Like, fine. That's great. And we have great conversations about this.
Yeah.
And it's lovely. Would you say you've always been a curious person or is this something that you've worked on over time or?
I am neurodiverse. I am definitely ADHD, definitely autistic. I've been that kid that was too curious my entire life. And, I remember in elementary school, the teacher would say, anybody have any questions? Anybody but Jeff, because I was always, and my favorite question was always why. And when they said, okay, anything but why, I'd say, why not? So I don't mean to be, a lot of people I get told I come across as let's say it politely, I get called a jackass a lot.
Okay.
And it's like, I'm curious, not judgmental. It's like, I'm genuinely curious. Why did you do that? Why did you think that? And if people haven't done the work on themselves, they're like, well, why would you ask that? How dare you? And it's like, well, I'm just curious. So
yeah. If people aren't curious themselves, I think they're more likely to feel attacked in those situations. Whereas if someone asks a question to me, I'm just like, I can't wait to tell you about this. Please, let's sit down.
There's a story. Let's.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you, when AI came out, ChatGPT in particular, I realized that it processes almost exactly the way I do. And I'm not kidding. People say this is strange, but I realized I like AI, prefer it to most human beings, because it'll tell you what it's thinking. It'll tell you why it's thinking it. And it is infinitely patient when you ask it questions.
Yeah.
And believe me, I've met a lot of people who are patient, but at some point they're like, oh, enough with the questions already.
And ChatGPT, suddenly it's 6 hours later and you're like, gosh, I'm having the nicest time with you.
You're so
really
amazing.
Nice to you. It's like, oh, me too. And you're like, hey,
Yeah,
I've heard rumors that in the future people might be dating AI.
well, I think there's some actually in some countries of the world where they've built virtual partners. But honestly, and I don't blame the humans. It's because people are tired of having shallow conversations that don't matter. And I think people want deep conversations.
Yeah. I think that there started to be a change towards that, even a change towards more in-person events where you're actually connecting with people in that way. And I'm so excited about it. So many more beautiful things can happen because of it. And I hope that also then brings people together to have maybe challenging conversations more, because they're starting to get more into having deep conversations.
Yeah. Now, I could talk to you about conversations and relationships, and I truly believe they're valuable in business, but I want to be mindful of your time. So where can people go to learn more about you and find out how they could work with you?
Sure. They're welcome to reach out on LinkedIn and just find me under Kat Jovey. I also have a Substack called Authentically Yours.
Oh, nice.
Which launched a month ago, and having a wonderful time with that. Or on my website, which is just knowledgechasers.card.co.
I love it. Well, Kat, I truly want to thank you for hanging out with me and indulging my curiosity.
Oh, it was my delight as well. I always love another curious human. So thank you for having me.